Are you a HELOC teacher? HELOC teachers not only think outside of the box, they break the box. Are you a HELOC teacher? HELOC teachers not only think outside of the box, they break the box.
Are you a HELOC teacher? A HELOC teacher is someone who never stops learning.
We know that highly efficacious, efficient, and effective educators expect their students to succeed.
Yes, y'all. HELOC, highly efficacious, effective, and efficient educators, is a series of 22 live lessons that focus on different areas of teacher efficacy, advocacy, and support.
HELOC teacher brings fun into the classroom.
HELOC teachers bring excitement to the classroom.
They welcome change into their classroom. They are masters of the subject and the content that they teach. And most importantly, they never stop learning. So again, I ask, are you a HELOC teacher?
We're excited that you can join us, so stay tuned for our upcoming HELOC lessons, and we look forward to learning and growing with you. Thank you.
Come on. I like that, y'all. The H, the E, the H, the H, the E. The H, the E, the H, the H, the E. I like that, like that. The H, the E, H, E, H, E. Heck yeah. Yes, y'all. Watch out. H-E. Yeah, come on. I like.
Good evening, everyone. We're so excited to see all of you here in our summer learning series. Thank you for joining us. I see people from across the country. So tonight is going to be a very special night. So make sure that you engage with us. How can you do that? First of all, where are you representing? Where are you watching from? What city are you from? What state are you in? Go ahead in the comments, say, hey, I'm from Dallas, so I'm representing Dallas, Texas. Hi, I'm Lavetta Levels, one of your hosts tonight. We have a panel tonight, a hosting panel representing from Washington, D.C. From Maryland, we have Miss Simone Walden. Wave, Simone. From Dallas, Texas, we have Miss Keishla Wiley with us tonight. And our own D-Tech Tag project director, Dr. Craig, is on. She's behind the scenes working with us. Dr. Johnny Cruz Craig, was wave to her. She's here on support. So I know you all did not come to hear me or to see us. I know that you're here for the one and the only Principal Kafele. So I'm not going to hold this up to get to him. He has been a wonderful inspiration for a lot of us. So we know that when he comes on, that you all are going to be completely engaged. Again, how do you get engaged? If you have any questions, please post your questions in the comments. You will be able to get your questions answered, because we have a portion for tonight for us to have some discussions back and forth. So while he's speaking to you, if you've got a question, please just go ahead and put your question in there. If you have, if you've participated before, hopefully you had the chance to sit in on Tuesday night. We are here every Tuesday and Thursday. We have 22 live learning lessons for you. This is lesson number 2, night number 2. So if you missed Tuesday night, that's okay. Welcome to the family. We're glad to have you. So tonight you have an opportunity for our second session. Tonight is Mr. Baruti, Principal Baruti Kafele. He's going to share with you about his experience. Going to share his wisdom. He's going to give you some insight, and he's going to give you some real talk and a lot of transparency, because that's just who he is. So shortly, we're going to bring him up. We know that, again, I'm waiting for some more people to come in. I see people are making some comments. Thank you for the comments. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Hello to everybody. I see a lot of people from Texas saying hello. Hello, all my Texans and people across the globe. So thank you all for joining us. But let me tell you a little bit about Principal Kafele, for those of you who have not heard of him. Principal Kafele is a Milken national educator, international renowned speaker, and he's a best-selling author. Principal Baruti Kafele has excelled in the capacity as a teacher and a principal. He has been a teacher in New Jersey. He was selected as the District and County Teacher of the Year. And as a principal, he led the turnaround of 4 different New Jersey urban public schools, including Newark Tech. And a lot of people have heard about Newark Tech. If you know anything about school improvement, if you know your research and your history, you should know about Newark Tech. And Newark Tech was recognized 3 times by the U.S. News and World Report magazine as one of the top schools in America. Principal Kafele is the author of 11 books, and I am a true fan. I'm a true fan. Just a couple of his books that I've had through the years. And his most recently released book is Amazon's #1 bestseller, The Assistant Principal: 50 Critical Questions for Meaningful Leadership and Professional Growth. So we are pleased to have Principal Kafele in the house. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it to him so he can go ahead and start sharing with us tonight. Again, welcome everyone. Sit back, take notes. I hope you're ready to take some notes. Put your seatbelt on. Get ready to learn. Here's Principal Kafele.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good to see all of you here at the phone. So I can see how many are actually on here. So we're looking kind of good here tonight. You know, it's a short presentation, and I think Jackson also, matter of fact, every day do a team presentation or multiple team presentations. Another thing, how can I talk about the subject that I'm supposed to talk about, but reason what I really want to talk about? And what I mean by that, we're in the midst of social unrest as a result of the brutal murder of our brother, George Floyd. So I'm not going to get political tonight, but I'm thinking always through my education. And I'm thinking about the young people who are returning to school, whenever they do, whether it be in the brick and mortar or whether it be through virtual learning. And that's not going anywhere. It's going to be there in their minds. Some of them are participating. Some of them just see it on television, but all of them are impacted by it. So I'm going to try to within the, I'm said my sound is low, but I don't think I can control that unless I put on this. Let's see what happens here. You guys are saying I'm low. All right, let's try this. Let's try. How am I now? Test. Tell me something. How am I sounding, somebody? Is it sounding better, or did this make it worse? Somebody just put something in the box there and let me know. All right, perfect. All right, so we'll go with this. So my topic today is teacher. Do you know me? And that's a pertinent question. And it's not so much that a youngster is literally asking a teacher that question in the literal sense. But in a figurative sense, youngsters are asking that question probably every day, every minute of the day. Hey, teacher, do you know me? And when I say do I know you, I don't mean in terms of a teacher knowing the name of the student, right? Knowing the classroom characteristics of a student, the fraction of a student that shows up to class every day. But I'm talking about the totality of a student. Hey, teacher, do you know me? Hey, teacher, do you know that young man? Do you know that young lady? So what I'm saying here, I'm looking at beyond just the classroom, and I'm saying, teacher, let me be the student in the example. I'm the student. So, teacher, what do you know about my experiences? And let me be very specific. I'm talking about an African American young man right now. Hey, teacher, what do you know about my experiences as an African American male or an African American young man? And I don't care if the teacher happens to be African American, it doesn't mean that culturally they're in the same space. So, what do you know about me relative to who I am once the dismissal bell rings and I go back to my community, right? What do you know about me? What do you know about walking in my shoes? So now you take that question. Well, let me expand upon it. So my experiences, my reality, my challenges, my obstacles, my needs, my interests, my goals, my aspirations, the way I learn, the way I think, the way I make sense out of information, the way I process information. What do you know about what inspires me? What do you know about what motivates me? Hey, teacher, what do you know about me? Said differently, do you know me? Right? But then to go a step further, hey, teacher, do you realize who I am? See, that's a different question. Now, do you realize who I am? So I'm thinking now, some of you who are my social media friends, I wrote a post 2 nights ago and I followed it up with a part 2 last night. And part 1 said, to my white friends out there, there's certain, and I'm just going to paraphrase because it was a very lengthy post. There's certain books that you need to read, right? To my white educator friends out there, because I'm looking at, I'm getting all these DMs and messages and emails from various teachers, various white teachers who are hungry for information now, because because with the murder of George Floyd and then the social unrest that emanated out of it, now there's this hunger for information, because now teachers or people who are white are seeing the anger, the rage in Black people. So now they want information. I need to understand this. What is that? What is this anger? And what is this thing about racism? What is this white privilege? What is this white supremacy? Why are they so upset? Why are they populating the streets in the numbers that they are? The rebellion and the rioting, right? And I distinguished the two. So now I went on the post last night and I said, yeah, those books that critique and analyze and provide theory to race, they're great books. But I guess I'm looking at the world through a different lens. I'm looking at it through my own lens. And I say, folks can read whatever books they want that critique, analyze race, and privilege and supremacy and all that kind of stuff. I said, but until they read the books that discuss the historical relationship between Black and white in America. So in other words, going back 401 years to 1619, and understanding the relationship, the dynamic between Blacks and whites, starting there and working their way year by year, 1620, 1621, 1622, 1700, 1725, 18, and all the way up to the present, to understand that relationship over decades, over centuries. Then the critique on race makes that much more sense. But then I didn't stop there. I said, but in addition to understanding starting with slavery, that can't be your starting point. You've got to go back into Africa. And you have got to, I'm saying to my white colleagues now, and you've got to learn Black people before enslavement. You can't start with us being at our lowest point in history as captives, enslaved. You can't start there. You got to go back into Africa and see the relationship between African people and science, African people and technology, African people and mathematics, African people and architecture, African people in engineering, African people in medicine, African people in astrology, right? African people in astrology. So astronomy and astrology, right? And I can go on and on. What is that relationship? Because that's the part that a whole lot of folks don't understand, are not knowledgeable of. So what they've been fed over their lifetime are stereotypes, right? Very negative, degrading stereotypes. And then that forms the basis of how one sees Black folk before they were captured and brought to America. So so what I did, I provided a list of 150 books 2 days ago on Facebook and Twitter to say, delve through this list, read these books, and then choose what you feel might be best. But then folks hit me up yesterday and they said, man, you gave so much. Can you break this down to like maybe the 2 or 3 most important? So I said, okay, I will. So I wrote a follow-up yesterday and I said, you need to read Introduction to African Civilizations by John Jackson. That's book number 1, so that you can get a full understanding of African people before slavery in America was even conceptualized. That's number 1. Number 2, I said Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. to get an understanding of African life in chapter 1, and then going right to indentured servitude, slavery in 1619 on to the present. So I'll say to the viewers this evening, same thing. Even if you're not white, but you're not conversant in that history, you got to know it. Because how do we talk race in between Black and white, and we don't know the history beyond just kind of summaries, right? We got to go in deep with it and really understand the dynamic if we're going to understand what happened on May 25th, 2020. See, when we have that kind of knowledge base, we have that kind of understanding historically, then what happened to George Floyd on May 25th, we understand it. We're still angry, we're still agitated, but we understand what it is, right? So let me move on. So my questions here. Hey, teacher, do you realize who I am? I'm talking about from a historical vantage point. If a teacher doesn't realize the historical, cultural greatness of that youngster, that Black youngster, that brown youngster, then teacher may look at youngster through some very distorted and inaccurate lenses. And now, because we're looking at that youngster through this distorted, inaccurate lens, youngster may be steered in a direction that is opposite to what he was born with the capacity to achieve. So I want to make sure that we're looking at youngster through that lens. See, one of the blessings in my life was that when I went to undergraduate school, I went there deaf, dumb, and blind. Right, I went there as it relates to history. I went to undergrad school knowing nothing about anything. And when I say that, I'm not being figurative, I'm being literal. I could talk to you about basketball and football, but I couldn't talk to you about anything else. I go to undergrad school, and on the very first day, I stumble on a book in the library called To Kill a Black Man by Louis Lomax, a book about the lives of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, a book about the parallels of their lives. And that book ignited a flame in me that's been blazing ever since in 1984. So from there, I read, I'm in Jersey, so I'm near New York City, I'm near Harlem. So I became probably the biggest customer at Liberation Bookstore in Harlem and bought up everything off the shelves literally every week expanding my knowledge base, expanding my knowledge base, expanding my knowledge base. So I'm learning all this history. I'm learning Malcolm, I'm learning Martin, but I'm learning everything that they knew. So now I graduate after being this person this young man that wasted his life for 10 years. I graduated summa cum laude with a 3.9 GPA, and I haven't looked back. But the question became, how did you do that? And it was very simple. That history introduced me to the person in my mirror that I thought I knew for all these years. And I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him historically. So when I read all that information, it said to me, hey, buddy, you stand on some mighty broad shoulders. There's some mighty broad shoulders that carried you to where you are today. How dare you squander your life and squander your education? So when I become an educator, I didn't go through formal training. I didn't go through pre-service training. I went through an alternate route. So all I knew was that history that I studied. That became my foundation. That was how I approached children in 1988 as a first-year teacher in Brooklyn, New York City, by exposing them to their history interdisciplinary through mathematics, through science, through social studies, through language arts, because going back to our question, I needed those youngsters by the end of that school year to be able to answer that question definitively, that I know who I am, right? So when we ask the question, teacher, do you know me? First and foremost, I'm asking youngster, well, do you know yourself? And I don't mean just your name now, as I've made clear. But so now, teacher, do you know this youngster beyond his or her name? Do you know this youngster regarding what I said before, experiences and reality, etc.? But do you recognize this youngster for who he or she is, historically speaking, right? Secondly, I asked the question, therefore, do they realize who they are? And we know that there's an overabundance of them that, like myself, who are victims of education, don't know who they are. One of the books that woke me up in terms of me making the transition into education was The Miseducation of the Negro, written by Carter G. Woodson. And I read that early in my literature journey in terms of my late blooming. And there was a paragraph in that introduction that blew my mind. He said in that introduction, Carter G. Woodson, as he wrote the book in 1933, still relevant in 2020, he said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or over yonder. He will find his quote unquote proper place and he will stay in it. He said, you do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. When I read that, I said, man, he's talking to me. He said, as long as you're thinking, as long as your mind is controlled by outside and external forces, you pose no threat. You pose no challenge to anybody. But the day you wake up and you begin to think critically, think analytically, then now you are in position to take your place on the world stage, right? So now as a teacher, I'm saying, but my youngsters need the same thing. I can't miseducate them. I got to know them, and I got to know them historically so that I can make them understand where they fall along the continuum of life. And that's why I said that history is so important. Think about young people who are out protesting right now because they're angry, right? When I say young people, I don't mean just children, just young people protesting right now, justifiably so because they're angry. But what if that same young person doesn't have a knowledge of the struggle that has been waged before him or her, right? Then they don't have context. And it doesn't take away from the effort. But I'm saying I want them out there with broad context. I want them out there with 400-year context as to why they're out there angry, as to why they're not going to stop or cease the protest they're engaged in. So it goes back. Teacher, do you know me? Do you really know me? But here's the thing. Man, my time's almost up. Time racing, man. Here's the thing. As teacher, I can't teach what I don't know. Oh, didn't hear me. I'm going to say it again. I can't teach what I don't know. But guess what? Secondly, I can't teach whom I don't know. How am I going to teach you? They gave me permission to go a little longer. There you go. There you go. How am I going to teach you if I don't know you? But look what happens when we put a youngster in a situation where teacher doesn't know him and youngster doesn't know self. Man, those are ingredients for disaster. Those are ingredients for school to prison pipeline. Those are ingredients for a quick trip to a self-contained special needs environment. So here you got this youngster who's valedictorian material. You valedictorian, salutatorian material, but you're in a classroom with a teacher that doesn't know you, and you haven't been introduced to yourself. See, I say that learning has to be culturally relevant. Learning has to be culturally responsive. Learning is got to be equitable, right? And youngster has to therefore be able to see oneself in the learning. So that now it's relevant to me. Like I'm looking at the numbers here. It says 179 that are on here live, hanging in there, right? So I'm saying to you, the only reason that you're on here right now is only one reason. And you're not on here because you're bored tonight and I ain't got nothing better to do but watch this fool yelling in the computer all night. That's not why you on here. You on here and stayed on here because I have said something that you can identify with. I have said something that you can relate to. And because you can identify with it and relate to it, you said, I'm going to hang out with this guy for a little while till he's finished. Well, youngster wants the same thing in the classroom. Youngster said, hey, teacher, what's this got to do with me? How can I use this? How can I apply this? How can I embrace this? How can I take this with me home after the dismissal bell rings? Like, is this relevant to my space after the dismissal bell rings? Because if it's not, then why do I need it? What's the point? Right? So now you got this brilliant youngster that doesn't see the significance because going back to the title, hey, teacher, do you know me? Do you know who I am in my shoes when I leave here? Right? Hey, let me move on. Hey, teacher. Do I see this teacher talking now? Do I see any significance in them learning their story? Man, teachers got to see that. Principals got to see that. Districts got to see that. The youngster must, like when I say youngster must be exposed to one's own story, that's a moral imperative. Like you guys are seeing me. I got lights all over the place, right? So I got lights on me so that you can see me good, right? But here's the thing. I went to school back in the day, and they sold me a bill of goods and told me that these lights shining on me right now. They told me this was Thomas Edison, and I took it and ran with it. And then years later, as an adult, I'm introduced through all that reading I did to a man by the name of Lewis Latimer. Oh man, Lewis Latimer, African American, 1880s, working with Thomas Edison. Edison creates a light bulb that doesn't work. It flickers out. It gets too hot. It's dangerous and it's expensive to produce. Brilliant black man Lewis Latimer says, Mr. Edison, I got this. It's missing something. What's that? It's missing the carbon thread filament, the wiring. And if you allow me to put the wiring in the bulb, right, I promise you, this bulb's gonna glow. So he puts the filament in the bulb, and now we got a bulb that's working, that's affordable, that's not dangerous, that lasts long, and is safe. So now, as a result of Lewis Latimer creating this carbon thread filament and inserting it into the bulb, so perfecting the bulb, he went on and wrote the first textbook ever written in America on electrical lighting. And from there, now that we got this new invention called lighting, well, it's time to light the cities up. So now the installation of lighting in places like New York, Montreal, London, Philadelphia, he supervised all of that. It was under him. So I'm reading Ivan Van Sertima's book, Blacks in Science, at the time, and reading McKinley Burt Jr.'s book, Black Inventors of America. And I'm saying to myself, why wasn't I exposed to the fact that there were African American scientists and inventors and mathematicians doing big things, and all I know is basketball players and football players and entertainers, right? Why wasn't I exposed to this so that I could realize and have appreciation for people who look like me? But then as I got older, then I'm looking at the teacher with the same question. Why isn't the teacher being equipped with this kind of information? Like, think about it. How could there possibly be a teacher in a school anywhere in America, anywhere, I don't care where it is, and the teacher in an urban track? So you're in an urban track because you aspire to teach in an urban setting. And the teacher has not been exposed to Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. or From Slavery to Freedom by John Hope Franklin, right? Those are the two premier African-American history textbooks, right? So I'm saying, how could the teacher go through 4 years of college, undergrad school, teacher prep program, and has not been exposed to these two books, and you're in an urban track? See, so now what we have done is set the teacher up for failure and the future student up for failure at the same time. So now we go back to the question, do I see any significance in them learning their story? But then I couple that, do they see any significance in learning their story? And youngster may have been so misled, led astray, as Malcolm said, hoodwinked, that youngster may not realize not only the significance of the story, but he may not realize the power in the story. That African American history, African history, African Caribbean history, African diasporan history, that history made me powerful. It made me believe that I could achieve anything I set my sights on achieving, because for the first time, I realized the shoulders upon which I stood. It did big things for me. So now I'm trying to read these notes y'all sending me. So as soon as okay, so they're now y'all talking to each other. So let me keep moving. Do I have a responsibility to teach them their story? Oh man. Do I have a responsibility? Yes, you do. But the problem is, if you don't know it, or if it's not in that curriculum, which chances are it is not, right? And then we couple that with number 6. Do they have a responsibility to learn their story? They do. But the burden is on us to teach it. See, we got to teach it. Everybody's not going to discover it as I did. I mean, I discovered this stuff, y'all. I didn't know. If you asked me about King when I was 23 years old, I can give you 2 sentences. If you asked me about Malcolm when I was 23 years, I'll give you 1 sentence, and it was probably inaccurate, because I probably would have said, oh, he was violent, because I didn't know. The information wasn't provided. 7 says, do my lessons take their history into consideration? So as I'm planning that math lesson, as I'm planning that science lesson, as I'm planning that social studies lesson, as I'm planning that language arts lesson, have I considered who's in the classroom? Or am I treating them as equal and generically? The word equality in schools has no place anymore. It's a relic from the past. You should be able to find that in your local museum, right? The operative word is equity, that we're meeting them where they are, right? So here I'm asking, do my lessons consider them? And couple that with the youngster, the youngsters identify and relate to what I teach them? Do they see themselves? But again, that's all in the preparation of the teacher toward asking the question, teacher, do you know me? Hey, teacher, this lesson, it doesn't speak to me. Number 9, teacher, will knowing their story impact the way they see themselves? Teacher has to be trained to understand that as they learn their story, because you'll find people and they fight and trying to figure out how do we like schools where there's discipline issues, right? Behavioral issues, or students that appear to be apathetic, right? And notice I said appear. So now folks are asking, how do we modify their behaviors? And they got all these discipline programs in place, right? So I'm saying discipline, that's not the issue. Let's talk about your curriculum and instruction. And to what extent are those youngsters engaged in those lessons where they can identify and relate to those lessons because they see themselves in the lesson, right? And then number 10, will knowing their story impact the way that I see them? And I would have to say an emphatic yes, because as you get to know their story, it gives you the opportunity to deviate from seeing them the way that pop culture has created imagery for you and I to see, right? So with that said, when we talk about teacher, do you know me in the context of today, June 4th, a week after the assassination of George Floyd and the day of the funeral, I'm saying this: social justice. So I mean, for those who may have circumvented social justice in the past, you can't do that anymore. You can't get around it. Social justice, meaning the opportunity that provides young people the opportunity to examine and explore their own realities in the context of justice versus injustices. There's no way to circumvent that. Those discussions have to occur. And they don't occur in isolation as an add-on to the present curriculum. They're infused into everything you do. So they become a part of the fabric of the school toward knowing that student. Because that student is dealing with in many cases, that student is dealing with a world that is very different from the world of his or her teacher. So I'm saying to the teacher, I'm asking the question, does social justice education exist in your classroom? And if so, what is the motivation behind it? And if not, why not? Right? And then when I'm talking to the leadership, I'm asking the question, hey, leader, can your students, or the teacher, can your students, particularly your students of color, can they articulate beyond raw emotion the injustices that surround them? Can they articulate that? Can they intellectualize it? Can they give you a deeper meaning and understanding as to what this is about, as opposed to solely being angry about it? I'm saying to the leadership, what type of professional development training do you provide staff toward developing a comfort and a confidence in engaging your students in issues of social justice? So now I'm looking at the leadership and saying, okay, how seriously are you taking it that you have provided professional development training that we can infuse social justice and issues of social justice into the classroom, again, in an interdisciplinary fashion. So it's in the math curriculum, the science curriculum, the social studies curriculum, the language arts curriculum, and isolated conversations and discussions. Number 7, I'm saying, forget these numbers. Next, 2 more. How knowledgeable are you, teacher? How knowledgeable are you, leader, in issues of social justice as it relates to the students that you service? Like, I was doing an interview with an organization earlier yesterday, and I said to them, matter of fact, the article is on my Facebook page right now, and I said to them, I said, a police murder of an unarmed black man, we as an African American community, we don't get shocked by that. We get angry by it, we get livid by it, we get agitated by it, but we're not shocked by it because this has been normal since we got here. So there's nothing new in 2019, 2020 in terms of unarmed black men being murdered by police officers. That's not a new phenomenon. But I think that America is waking up to it, and you got a lot of people who are not black who are outraged by it. But I don't know that they understand the history behind the rage. And in order for them to understand the history behind the rage, they have to be exposed to the information. And that's why I said earlier, 45 minutes ago almost, that the need to study history, to understand the relationship between black and white going back to when we were captured on the continent and brought here through the Middle Passage and ultimately sold into slavery. That has to be fully understood beyond a trivial, superficial understanding, right? And then the last one, how competent are you, and this is to a leader now, how competent are you in incorporating issues of social justice in your overall instructional leadership with staff, right? So I'm saying here, leader, you can't just be focused on raising test scores. That can't be the focus. We want the test scores to rise, but that can't be the priority. The priority has got to be the wholeness of the child, the totality of the child, the whole student. And a part of that are issues of social justice, right? So whether we talk about injustices regarding police, whether we talk about injustices regarding healthcare, injustices regarding housing, injustices regarding education, injustices regarding bank lending, real estate. I mean, we can go on and on. Teacher, you've got to be conversant, because if you're not conversant in these areas, then bringing it full circle as I'm closing in a second, you don't know me. You don't know me. See, and the bottom line is, as my teacher, I need you to know me, right? So let me close it with this question. Here's this book I wrote back in 2016 called The Teacher 50. And it's comprised of 50 self-reflective questions. And the first question, it reads like this: are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? Let me ask again. Are my students at an advantage because I am their teacher? Is there something advantageous about having you, my teacher? Would my trajectory alter for the better if there was someone else in your place? The fact that we wound up in the same place by fate, does that mean I'm in the best possible situation? And I say to teachers every day, because I ask this question to every audience I speak to, I say, teacher, the question is meant to sting. It is meant for you to say, ouch. But in addition to that, it is meant for you to feel uncomfortable. But then you got to dig deep and deal with the question and the answer. And teacher, if you're grappling with an answer, are my students at an advantage because I teach them? If you're grappling with that, you can grapple with it right now on June 4th at 7:14. But you cannot grapple with it in real time when that student is in front of you, whether it be on a Zoom presentation or whatever the virtual platform may be, or whether it be in the classroom. You cannot grapple with that question. You have to know, hear me, you have to know definitively that the best option for my students is me because of your own self-efficacy, your own belief in yourself, your own confidence in yourself, and your own innate focus on developing your skill set so that you evolve into being the best you that you can be, the best version of yourself as that teacher. So let me close it one more time. I know I sound like the Baptist preacher right now, but I got to let y'all know about my newest book, The Assistant Principal 50. This book is not just a book I wrote. This is my personal professional mission. Some of you know I have the Saturday morning virtual Assistant Principal Academy. free of charge, 18 consecutive Saturdays starting 5 weeks ago. We going into week 6 this Saturday for an hour where I'm just talking about assistant principal leadership, because we're talking about impacting that child. Teacher, do you know me? But I say, and I'll take it to my grave, that the most misunderstood and underutilized position in all of education is the assistant principalship. We have to rethink that role of the assistant principal, because if there's a child in a school where an assistant principal is a full-time disciplinarian, a cafeteria supervisor, a bus duty guy, and all that kind of other stuff, and that person supervises staff but doesn't have the freedom or the opportunity or the flexibility to actually supervise staff and play their part in making staff great, then there's no way in the world that youngster is going to be able to maximize his or her potential in that classroom with that particular student, right? So I'm saying to you, the assistant principal is my mission. So just get this: ascd.org, principalkafele.com, Amazon. It was released May 11 and it sold out on May 11. So we had to go to a second printing. So Amazon has been out of them since it came out. But but you can order it now, and they'll as soon as they're released, they have them. They just haven't made them available. But ASCD has them. So I just want you to get your hands on this. And yeah, I just saw that post. Invite me out so I can talk to your assistant principals, so I can talk to your aspiring principals. I'm coming off so I can talk to your principals, and so I can also talk to your principals, right? I got the information. I just need you to bring me out there so I can talk about it. So Ms. Levels is back.
And,
that means
and parents too.
And the parents, my Black Parents Handbook to Educating Your Children, my Motivating Black Males to Achieve in School and Life, my Teacher 50, my Closing the Attitude Gap. We got them all.
We go back.
I just want you guys to know they're out there. But
Thank
with that
you,
said, I appreciate you, Ms. Levels. Appreciate you.
Stay on. Can we have questions for you, sir?
I'm here.
So let me say, Principal Kafele, thank you. I know you've had a busy day, a busy summer. This COVID.
I want more tonight.
You have pivoted more than any other person. I know you are on 24/7, and I love the fact that you do it from a sincere place. You are sincerely trying to ensure that there's equity for our children, social justice in the classroom. Imagine that a child can have equity and social justice in the classroom, and that a child can feel like I have an advantage because Miss Levels was my teacher. I have an advantage because Miss Levels was my principal. I have an advantage because I worked side by side with Dr. Craig. We know that those are important questions to answer. And we know that's the self-efficacy that you are shooting for. That's the one that you're talking about, that our students, our teachers, our staff, that they feel self-efficacious because they have been in the room with somebody, because you have shared your knowledge, skills, and your experience with them. So I don't want to take up much more time. I know that there are questions out there. I'm going to go ahead and give this to Keisha Wiley. She's going to lead our Bring Your Own Voice. Principal Kafele, stay there in case there are questions for you. Again, thank you, Principal Kafele. You know I'm your number one fan.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yes, again, thank you, Principal Kafele. So we're going to take few questions. You guys, we have come to the portion of our session where it's we have the opportunity to ask questions of our panelists. So it's BYOV time. Bring your own voice. So as we get ready to gear up for our first question, I'm going to ask you all to hashtag BYOV in the comments. BYOV. Bring your own voice. All right, Principal Kafele, we thank you for staying around, hanging around for a few questions. So this first question we have asks, how can we teach social justice to educators and students when the ideal is suppressed across educational platforms?
Yeah, I saw that question and it fizzled out before, and I'm glad it came back. I think that's pronounced Rachel. And here's the thing.
Michelle Broussard, Texas.
Here's the thing. I want to give you a two-part answer. Number one, when I was a classroom teacher, I knew that there were a lot of things I couldn't do. And I also knew that I didn't go through the pre-service training, as I said before. So I didn't know a lot of what other people knew. All I knew with Lerone Bennett and Carter G. Woodson and Joseph Ben Yakinen and John Henry Clark and George G.M. James and all these others. All I knew was what they said. So that was my foundation. So I went in there and I infused that into instruction, but I had my door closed. I built relationship with my students. So now, because my and let me put emphasis on that. I built relationship with them. They understood where I was coming from, right? So I closed the door and I did what I felt was the right thing to do, right? It wasn't that I was breaking policy or anything of that nature. It's just that when those youngsters walk into that room, they're mine. They're not even their parents in that space of time. They're mine, right? And my job is to get them ready. Now I gotta say this to you as I'm answering the question. That was my first year. I kept doing it, but I don't have pride in my first year because I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to write a lesson plan. I knew nothing. But I got to say this to you in the context of the question. Less than a year ago, a young lady who's now in her 40s wrote me and said, "Mr. Kafele, I've been following you on Facebook for years, but I've never commented." Right? She said, "But I got to comment to you today." So I'm sitting in an auditorium while they're reading my bio to give a keynote. And she said, I was your student in 5th grade in Brooklyn. Now, I knew the name immediately. She said, I am now a Columbia University law professor, right? She said, but I'm a law professor at Columbia because of what you instilled in me as a 5th grader, right? So I wrote her back and said, I can't take that credit because in my mind I was lousy. I told her, I said, I didn't even know what I was doing. She said, no, you did know. She said, because you taught us our story. So I'm saying with social justice, that history falls into under that umbrella of social justice. You can't talk social justice without talking history. So now to directly answer the question, Ms. Broussard, this is me personally now. I'm on a mission to interact with all of these school leaders across the country. I mean, I've been on that mission. That ain't new. So I'm talking to these school leaders across the country, superintendents, assistant superintendents, principals, directors, etc., to say, look, what we've been doing is not working. I've been blessed with a platform. So I'm saying what we've been doing is not working. So now in the wake of George Floyd and all these school leaders out here, they know what's going on. They see these protests. Right. So now I'm just going to ease in, like, and that's what I've been doing all the past 2 weeks now with my presentation. When they call, could you speak on X, Y, and Z? Yeah, but can I slide in some social justice now? Because your kids know what's going on. They say, yeah, be my guest. Everywhere, every place, every school I speak to on Zoom right now. So I'm saying it's got to go through the leadership, and here's why. Because if it doesn't go through the leadership, it's not going to be across the building. Right? It'll be isolated classrooms of those teachers with a certain level of consciousness who say, I've got to infuse this. I want the leadership, starting with the superintendent, if not the state commissioner, to say, we have to make sure that we're treating these young people equitably. And that includes bringing a social justice curriculum into that classroom where the teachers have a comfort level, because we have created a culture in that school where I don't care if you're right wing, left wing, as James M. Tume says, right wing, left wing is the same bird, right? So therefore, wherever they stand, I want them just to have a comfort level in having a discussion amongst the adults and understanding the students in which we teach, and that if your politics run contrary to the students that we teach, then you got to tweak that in terms of working in this building with these students, because we're all about children, not about our politics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And beginning with leadership. I heard you saying begin with leadership and learning who we are so that we can be of service to others. Thank you so much for that response. Our next question says, where do we begin to have these conversations with our staff? Where do we even begin?
Yeah. And that's is it Diana? Diana Cleveland. Diana. Let me. Diana. Are you administrator? You know Diana?
No.
Let me just make the assumption that you are, right, just for the sake of discussion. Since and if you're not, just you use it however you see fit. As leader has to have the courage, the spine, the backbone, the audacity to engage staff in this conversation. But leader also has to leadership also has to understand how to use the time of a staff meeting. Young, me, thin, rookie, green, raw, me as a principal back in 1998, I used staff meeting time as like administrative. We dealt with administrative issues, but with time and experience comes wisdom. And I said, why am I using my staff meeting to talk about fire drills, to talk about copiers in the teachers' lounge that are not working, about paper shortages and all that kind of stuff, instead of talking about teaching and learning? So now as I grew, I said the meeting has to be about the youngsters, all 90 minutes of it. So now with that question, I'm going to recognize who's in the room, and I'm going to use my people skills as I maneuver or launch into this conversation. And I'm not coming like if we haven't talked about this in the past, I'm not coming at my staff like bam. I'm not doing that, because I will lose staff members. So in other words, I'm coming at them like this. You can't. Matter of fact, let me I'm coming like this here.
Yes.
Right. And I'm gonna be so delicate with it. Yeah. Right. So maybe have them have some conversations amongst themselves on something light. And I'm going to use my people skills, and I'm going to work my way to getting heavier and getting heavier, to the extent that now I got a staff that is very comfortable in the tough conversations. And now we can have the conversation. I can mix them up, and they're not sitting with their best friends and colleagues, but we mix them up, and now we engage in the tough conversation. And we're not pulling at each other and angry with each other at the end of the meeting, because I intentionally, deliberately created a culture where this was a safe space and we can engage in this conversation, because at the end of the day, it's about that youngster. Give me like 2 seconds to give you this one example.
Okay.
If you go tomorrow morning, go to your, no, if you're in a state where the car dealership is open, go to the car dealership, right? I'll keep this short. And ask the general manager when you walk in, say, where's your top producing salesperson? And they'll say, why do you want to know? I just want to know how they doing it, right? So okay, that person right there. Can I talk to him for a minute? Well, if they could fit you in, go see him. So now you go over, hey, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, I heard you were the top producer. You sell more cars than anybody. How you doing that? And and watch this. Here's what they're not going to say to you. They're not going to say, because I know cars inside and out. They're not going to say, because I know the features of these cars. They're not going to say, because I know the benefits of these cars, right? Here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, because when a customer walks in this showroom, I forge relationship. Yes. That person said, I don't sell cars for a living. I build relationships for a living. And because I build relationships for a living, I get a lot of people in those cars doing test drives when they didn't come in here to test drive or buy a car. They just wanted to look around. But because I forge relationships, I find out what you into. Oh, you're a teacher? I'm talking about teaching. We ain't talking about no car. We talking about teaching and learning. But I'm not doing the talking. I'm just asking the questions. You doing the talking. I'm pumping you up. I'm telling you how phenomenal you are as a teacher and how you're so valuable to society. And next thing you know, you test driving, right? Sampling the car. Then we come back. Tell me more about your teaching. And next, let me slide this offer sheet at you, right? What amount can I put on here that you could drive this car out the showroom? That's how that person selling them cars, because they got people skills. And that's how we got to do it in the building in terms of selling these complex topics. You got to bring your people skill. This don't work.
It's absolutely. I heard you say intentional and deliberate people skills. Principal Kafele, you have blessed us. You have definitely blessed us with that response. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to bring in the rest of the panelists, the project managers. And we're so grateful, so thankful for that opportunity, that question and answer opportunity. Lavetta?
Hi again. Thank you, Principal Kafele. I want to thank publicly. Let me thank our program manager, Simone Walden, who was driving us tonight. So thank you. She had the wheel tonight. Our other project manager is not here. Program manager is not here. Isis Span. So shout out to Miss Span, who's normally driving us, but Simone took the wheel for us tonight. Absolutely. Thank you. Keishla, thank you. Thank you. Great job, Keishla. So excited to work side by side with you. This has been a phenomenal night. Great questions, great engagement, great interaction. And I see there's more comments there. People want to know more about Principal Kafele. He shared with you that you can join his Saturday morning Assistant Principal Academy. He shared with you about books. Yes, sir.
No, I told him, get with me on Saturday. Go to principalkafele.com and that's how you reach him. Just go to the website.
principalkafele.com. That's where he is. If you want to find out more about He Live Learning, Summer Learning, we have another session coming up. Tuesday, June the 9th, we have the one and only Dr. Marla Dean coming, talking about the whole child. Principal Kafele shared with us, we cannot ensure the academic success of our students if we don't know the whole child. So Dr. Dean is going to come to us and share with us her expertise around teaching the whole child, the entire child. On Thursday, we have the one and only coming from Atlanta, Georgia, Shalonda Soroyer. Woo! Shout out to Shalonda Soroyer.
I'm excited.
But she is the priority trainer for the Harry Wong. If you know anything about Harry Wong, if you've been around a teacher long enough, if you've been teacher anytime, you know who Harry Wong is. So all of his training, he only has one person out there training for him, and this is Shalonda Soroyer. She's gonna come talk to you next Thursday about the power of procedures. We know how important procedures are as educators. As you can see, we got something for everyone. Parents, teachers, students. We're going to have a student panel coming up at the end of the month. Know that parents, right now, because of COVID, you've been given this new responsibility at home. So please invite your friends that are parents that want to know more about how to educate their child. Some of your community members, elected officials. I know I saw a couple elected officials. I'm gonna call their names. They jumped in real quietly. So shout out to the elected officials that are here tonight, because they know they have to make policies with the best, make decisions around our children. We know they're trying to make the best decisions with our children in mind. So thank you for those elected officials that have joined us. Dr. Craig, again, she's gonna, I know she's closing us out in the back. Simone, you want to talk about the certificate before I leave?
Principal Kafele, we really truly appreciate you tonight for being a part. You have jump started something in me personally, and I have a lot of reading to do. I want to be a better educator. And so on behalf of the He Live team, we want to present this certificate of presentation to you for being our presenter for the summer He Live session. And God bless you, and thank you so much. You'll receive this personally in an email from us tomorrow.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Again, don't forget to complete the survey. There's a link in the chat, and it's also scrolling at the bottom, www.surveymonkey.com/r/He Live. Make sure you complete the survey. So if you complete the survey, you can be a winner. I'm going to kick it back to Keisha so we can talk about the winners.
All right, so before we go, we are going to announce our winners from Tuesday. If you filled out the survey, then you were qualified to receive a gift card, and that gift card is going to come in the mail. So we're going to go ahead and do that drawing now. Our first winner is Mary Tate. Congratulations, Mary. You will be receiving a gift card in the mail. And our second winner from Tuesday is Rosalind Stewart. Congratulations, Rosalind. Congratulations, Mary. And again, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you again, everyone. Good night. We'll see you on Tuesday. Good night. We'll see everybody next Tuesday, same time, 6:30 Eastern, 5:30 Central Standard Time.
you guys can hear me, I want to ask you something.
The focus is everything. How can you be great if you're not being better than you were tomorrow than you were yesterday? So that's the whole goal. Just to be better, to come with new knowledge, come with new awareness.